morning. Welcome to the San Jose Center for Spiritual Living, where we are transforming lives, building dreams, and revealing love. Where all that we ask is that you remain open to the possibility of changing your entire life by changing your mind. Welcome home. My name is Matt Lindstedt, and this is Paul Witt. He is your practitioner of the day. And if you are new here, we'd like to welcome you. We have so many great things happening here at the center. If you would, after the service, if you go into Fellowship Hall at the concierge table, you can fill out our guest book, and they'll have an information and a guest packet for you. It's chock full of information about the center and what we're up to. The flowers today are dedicated to Clara Beth Denton from Mandelin Vanderhorst. Okay, each week we celebrate community, and by doing so, please greet the miracle sitting in your row. All right, settle down. To help us center and guide ourselves into our 2 minutes of silence and our chant, please silence your cell phone first and go within, please.
And staying in that special, deep silence, in that noble place where you live, in your heart, in your thoughts, and knowing that arriving today was very special. And being in that silence of nobility, gracefulness, and the clarity of who you are, and all the love that you have to give to the world and to receive. And the music, the talk, every essence of who you are is just a very special moment. Never before. And you get to take this out to the world right here and right now. And knowing as you sit here in the silence, knowing the presence of Spirit is right here in the room, right here everywhere, for you. And being ever so grateful for the essence of who you are. As I release my word into law, it's already done. And together we say, and so it is. Welcome. If you join with me this month's affirmation, it's on the screens. Today I bestow the essence of love upon everything. Everyone I meet shall be lovely to me. My soul meets the soul of the universe in everyone. This love is a healing power touching everything into wholeness.
When I find myself in times of trouble, Mother Mary comes to me, speaking words of wisdom, let it be. And though I'm troubled, there is still a light that shines on me, speaking words of wisdom, let it be. Let it be. Let it be, let it be, let
Good morning. My name is Denny Reddy, and I have the privilege of delivering your Insight Talk today. This community taught me that if I want the life I've always dreamt of, I need to learn to do the things that are uncomfortable. And I think this qualifies. And I didn't know how to do that when I got here. 4 years ago, when I walked through those doors, I was basically a mess. Not only was I dealing with a very serious addiction to crystal meth, I was completely disconnected from you, from me, and from life. Thank God I have a script, right? I was about to lose my job, my family, and my friends. And I wasn't this inherently bad person. I just operated from fear most of the time. And this caused me to show up in very harmful and inconsistent ways. So let me give you an example of what this looked like. In high school, I had a best friend named Jen. She was the best fag hag a boy could ask for. She was loud, outgoing, eccentric, and this worked for me because I could hide behind her and let her do all the work and then resent her for it later. Think back to the script. She became my liaison to life, and this worked for me because if it was too uncomfortable, I simply didn't do it. Jen also had a lot going on. She was bulimic, bipolar. She was addicted to every pain pill on the planet. I used to call her Vicodin, Percogen, and this is the best way I knew how to love my friend, with judgment. I spent most of my time complaining about her. Why can't she get her life together? Why can't she be normal? Why can't she be more like me? I was so busy forming opinions about her life and your life that I never took the time to discover who I was or to notice my life was falling apart. I did notice I was miserable. I just assumed it was your fault. So I did everything I could to fix you so I could be happy. But happy never came. You people are nodding, you get me. So how does a gay mama's boy from South San Jose become a drug addict? Well, drugging just became my way to numb the shame and the guilt that was building inside me. But then I walked through those doors and I was presented with an invitation to change my entire life by changing my mind. So was it possible that there was something about life I didn't fully understand, the understanding of which could change everything? So here's what I was clear about when I got here. My best idea of how life worked landed me into rehab 3 times. So maybe, just maybe, there was someone in this sanctuary that knew a better way. And that's when I first became willing. And I started to show up, I started to get connected, and I started to take some classes. And here's what I learned. Do you want to hear what I learned? Okay, just making sure you're there. Number 1, my life is not about me. I spent much of my life trying to make me happy. I would take from whatever I could from you to achieve that. But I learned that I had it all backwards. It's not about what I can get from you. It's what I can give to you. I have to be the source. And if I want to experience anything, compassion, recovery, love, I just need to give it to another. Because not only does that produce a direct experience of that thing I seek, it's also a declaration that that thing that I seek is already inside of me. And the funny thing is, when I start showing up in life this way, it comes back to me multiplied abundantly. Number 2, turn the page. I became clear that the stories of limitation that I had been telling myself were just that, stories. They simply weren't true. So I began to ignore them and move forward anyway. I was afraid and did it anyway. And eventually they no longer had any power. Ernest Holmes describes it brilliantly like this. Right here, he must stop and declare that these images of limitation are neither person, place, nor thing. They have no power, personality, nor presence, and no real law to support them. He does not believe in them, and they cannot operate through him. He is free from their influence forever. He begins to fill his thought with the idea of faith, the expectancy of good, and the realization of plenty. He senses and mentally sees right action in his life. He puts his whole trust in the law of good, and it becomes very real to him as he speaks it into being. He denies anything and everything that contradicts his realization of this truth. Wow. And number 3, the best way I learned to move through fear is to say yes. In the last 4 years, I have been in 7 theatrical productions, sponsored 5 people in the 12-step programs, attended 6 recovery retreats, and 9 spiritual retreats, been the main speaker at countless meetings, held over 20 service commitments, taken 7 spiritual education classes, and I continue to co-facilitate a book study every Sunday night at this center. All of these things were uncomfortable, and all of these things rendered my fear powerless, and all of these things led me to the next grandest version of the greatest vision ever held about who I am. I close with this. 4 months into my recovery, my brother transitioned, and we had his service in this room. As people came up to this stage and talked about my brother, I noticed they were all saying the same thing. My brother was committed to service, and he loved each and every one of you no matter what. I noticed that because he was extremely consistent, and I had never been consistent about anything. I had no idea at that point how I would ever become the kind of man my brother was. 3 years later, after service, I go to help my friend Petra, who wrote a book about Alzheimer's, and she wanted me to build her a website. This is not an unusual way for me to spend a Sunday afternoon. On my way home, I had this remembrance of this beat-up yellow truck on the side of the road, and that was my truck, and my brother was hunched over that engine, keeping that car alive. It was that moment that I realized I had become my brother, and you people taught me how to love like that. Thank you.
Wow. Deep breath. That was great, Denny. I'm not sure they need me now. I'm Reverend Mary Murray Shelton. Some of you may know me. I'm really delighted to be able to be here with you this morning at Dr. David Bruner's invitation and Reverend Susan Overland, who are in Orlando for the Center for Spiritual Living convention that's happening down there right now. Hello, where are the cameras? Hello to those of you that are online this morning. How many of you want to know the secret of fulfilling relationships? Yes? I'm going to tell you some things about that this morning. Not that I know, actually, but I'm going to tell you some things about that this morning because this is one of the things we all want to know the answer to. Ministers and practitioners will tell you that there are 4 big things that people come to them to request treatment for: work, health, money, and relationships. Those are the 4 biggies. We want to have an abundant life. We want to be vibrantly healthy. We want to have fulfilling work, and we want to have happy relationships. The problem is that there are so many myths around about what actually makes a relationship work. Now, we in the Centers for Spiritual Living, in New Thought Practice, accept Ernest Holmes' vision that life is meant to be happy and healthy and fulfilling and successful in all the areas of our lives, and that what gets in our way is our beliefs about those things, or what is possible for us, or what they're supposed to look like, or how you do them. And so, as Denny was saying, sometimes we have to change our minds about those things in order to find a way in that really works. And that is not always easy when there are a lot of myths that we're holding about what makes relationships happy. So I wanted to talk about, hello choir. I wanted to talk about relationships today because here we are 2 days after Valentine's Day, and next to June, February is the big love month, right? And so we either look to Valentine's Day with enthusiasm or dread. because we're either happily coupled or we're not coupled or we're uncoupling, as Reverend David said a week or two ago. So in this process, we do the best we can with what we have. I heard a story about a fellow who had an acquaintance with the lyricist and the composer of the famous song April in Paris, and Vernon Duke was the composer. And a friend of his, based on the song, decided to go to Paris for April, 3 weeks in April one year, and the weather was horrible. So when he came home, he called Duke up on the phone, and he told him. And Duke said to him, "Whatever possessed you to go to Paris in April? The weather in Paris in April is dreadful." And he said, "Well, I went because of your song." "Oh," Duke said apologetically, we really meant May, but the song required a 2-syllable word." So the myth was, that April in Paris is the most romantic time to go there, when even the composer knew that wasn't true. But it made a good story, right? So when I was in graduate school for psychology, I got introduced to the different theories about couples counseling and marriage counseling, and I found out something that I had not known before, which frankly surprised me. One of the things I learned was that most couples counseling, the majority of it, doesn't work long term. The other thing I learned was that most couples counseling, up to relatively recently, was based on good ideas, but not on actual research. So it's a good idea, and it makes logical sense that if people learn conflict resolution, their relationships will be more successful. Not necessarily true. That if they learn to communicate better with each other, their relationships will be more successful. Not necessarily true. That if they have a lot of things in common, their relationships are more likely to be successful. Not necessarily true. That men are not made for monogamy. Actually, more young women have affairs these days than men. So all these things that we all thought, and that well-meaning therapists thought made good sense, and that should help people's relationships, did not necessarily add up to long-term success in relationships. So enter Dr. John Gottman. How many of you have heard of John Gottman? Okay, a few. Dr. John Gottman is a PhD clinical psychologist who started to do research in Seattle at what he called his love lab. He would invite couples in to spend the weekend in the love lab, which was set up just like an apartment, to bring their pets, their food, their whatever they would do for the weekend, their newspapers or anything that they would be likely to do together if they stayed home. And they would be in a setting where they had cameras, not in the bedroom and bathroom, but cameras in the apartment, but no people interacted with them except they'd get a little guidance at the beginning that at some time during the weekend, they should have a conversation about some issue that was difficult for them. And they did have little sensors on them that would pick up their heart rate and things like that. So over the course of the weekend, they kind of settled in and began to relax, and they'd have these conversations. And what John Gottman discovered was that he began to see trends in people's interactions with each other that were signals for trouble. And he identified what he called the disasters of relationship, the things that would cause them to fall apart over time. And he thought, like most good therapists, that if he trained people not to do those things, that their relationships would be more successful, now that he knew what the problem areas were. But that didn't work as well as he expected it to. And so he had to take it further and to look more deeply into this research to discover what was it that couples whose relationships lasted, what were they doing? Not what were people doing that was taking them apart, but what were couples doing that was making them masters of relationships? So I want to tell you a little bit about both those things. But first I want to step back. We have heard Ernest Holmes, the founder of our organization, say this: I believe in a religion of happiness and joy. There's too much depression and sorrow in the world. These things were never meant to exist. They have no real place in God's world. Religion should be like the morning sun, sending forth glorious rays of light. It should be like the gently falling dew covering all. Like the cool of the evening and the repose of the night. It should be a spontaneous song of joy. Well, it's not a spontaneous song of joy when your relationship is in the pits. Now, then we have Jesus saying, at least according to John's gospel, I've spoken these things to you that my joy may be in you and that your joy may be full. This is my commandment, that you love one another just as I have loved you. So we look at that and say, well, what does that mean? Does it mean that we can never get angry? Well, no, he did throw the money changers out of the temple. He wasn't happy that day. Does it mean that, what does that mean? Does that mean I always have to forgive everything? Does that mean I can't ever argue? Does that mean if you're wrong and I'm right, I can't tell you that? What does that actually mean? So John Gottman did this research, and he did it so in such a beautiful way. He studied over 3,000 couples over 4 decades. So a number of them he saw multiple times in the Love Lab. They'd invite them back and watch them interact, to the point where today he says that let me see, I want to say this exactly the way he said it. I am now able to predict whether a couple will stay happily together or lose their way after listening to the couple interact in our Love Lab for as little as 5 minutes. My accuracy rate in these predictions averages 91% over 3 separate studies. So what was he seeing? Well, what he identifies is that there are 5 things that really support making a relationship work. And I want to mention 2 of them to you this morning. One is the strong friendship bond. And the second one is what he calls positive sentiment override. Let me say something about that one first. Positive sentiment override is when your partner does something thoughtless, and instead of assuming they're always thoughtless, that's just how they are, they never consider you, your assumption is they're distracted, they're stressed, things are a little challenging for them right now, or we've been worried about such and such. So our assumption of our partner becomes positive. Our overlay, or the glasses we're looking through, become positive rather than negative. We can learn to build that. So one of the good pieces of information was for the most part, the majority of relationships, no matter where they are, they can begin to improve by knowing what these things are that help make relationships thrive. So I want to talk a little bit more about building the friendship. He said building a strong friendship has 3 components. It has detailed love maps, which means that you know the inner terrain of your partner's life and feelings. What's important to them? What bugs them? Who are they challenged by right now? What are some of their dreams and desires? What was a fun memory for them when they were children? What are they doing after lunch today? So that we have a sense within ourselves of who our partner is and what their life is about. That's one piece of it. Another piece is cultivating fondness and appreciation, so that on a daily basis, we might think to ourselves, my partner is someone that I enjoy being with. Here's one of the things that makes me happy about being with my partner. And the next day we might think, I really love that conversation that we had last night. I'm going to see if we can do more of that. So that every day we're building positive fondness and thoughts about our partner instead of collecting a list of the stuff that they haven't done, or they left the dishes in the sink again, or whatever it might be, the socks in the middle of the floor. Are you with me here so far? Yeah? So we have love maps and fondness and admiration. And then the third one is turning toward our partner rather than away from our partner. He talks about our our bids for connection that we make with one another all the time. Little bids. It might be a little joke. It might be a comment. Usually there's something small. But these little tiny comments or gestures toward our partner are invitations to engage. We can respond to those in one of three ways. We can turn toward our partner, which would be as little as saying, wow, really? We can turn away from our partner, which is not responding at all, or not really being there. So this is the kind of thing that happens if you're on the computer, or you're texting somebody, or you're playing a video game, or you're reading the paper, or you're watching a game on TV or some show that you like, and your partner comes in and says, wow, I just heard such and such, or did you see this something or other out in the yard? And we say, oh yeah, I saw it. That was pretty nice, or that was interesting. That's turning toward. It's just giving something in response rather than I'm not here, you're not here, or And the third thing we can do is turn against our partner, which is, can't you see I'm busy here? You're always interrupting me. So instead of turning toward our partner with an acknowledgement or turning away, which is non-response, it's actually coming back at them like that. The more of these bids that we respond to in some small positive way, the happier the relationship becomes. In fact, Gottman said that in conversations that have a harsh start, 96% of them will end the way they started. So we want to learn to begin more gently with one another. So the strong friendship and the positive sentiment override, we can build those up over time. It doesn't take a lot of time. It's just giving ourselves those moments. And I want to give you also, on balance, something to pay attention to in terms of what you don't want to do in relationship too. He listed 6 things that undermine relationships, and one of them was this little cluster of things he calls the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. Not good news. And they are criticism, defensiveness, contempt, the worst one. He said that is the most corrosive, and stonewalling. Criticism is just putting your partner down. Defensiveness is making excuses or whining or arguing. Even if you feel like you have a good reason to do that, try to take responsibility for some part of what's going on. Otherwise, it escalates the conflict. The third thing is contempt. Contempt is criticism taken to a higher level. Instead of complaining about the problem, you're criticizing your partner, but now it's not just criticizing the partner, it's criticizing their essence. Now there's something wrong with them. You're not criticizing their behavior, you're criticizing them. You're saying there's something essentially wrong with them. That's contempt. Now with criticism, the antidote is a gentle startup. With defensiveness, the antidote is taking some responsibility for the situation, not just defending against it. For contempt, the antidote is building this culture of appreciation. And for stonewalling, one of the interesting things about stonewalling, that's when the person just shuts down, no response. When they observed people in the Love Lab, what they saw was that happened more often, that men did it than women. And what was happening to them on the inside when there was no response is they were completely emotionally flooded. Their heart rates were way up. And what happens when we get completely emotionally flooded is we are unable to continue to connect. We can't think rationally, we can't respond, and so we stop. It is sometimes a mechanism that arises when we're fearing criticism or contempt from the other person. So the antidote to stonewalling is to take a break, go apart, do a little self-soothing, take a walk, don't think about the conversation, take a break from it, and then come back to it. So when we are turning toward our partner, when we are cultivating this positive sentiment override, we're building now a relationship that has more juice to it, that's happier. The good news is, there's 2 pieces of good news I want to give you. The first one is that even the most successful relationships had some of this negative stuff in them So it didn't matter that it was there. It was that the overall trend was in this more positive direction. Even some of the worst stuff was in some of the greatest relationships. So, don't despair if yours is rough right now. The second piece of good news, which might sound ironic, is that some problems they discovered, some problems that couples have are not solvable. Now, why is that good news? It's good news because if you can identify the ones you can solve, you can create a response for those. And if you can identify the ones that are not solvable, you can find ways to work around them or live with them or make space for them in your relationship. I want to say this to you about love and relationships as I come to a close this morning, and that is they don't have to be perfect to be great, and everything I've said to you this morning can apply to every relationship in your life, not just the relationship with your lover, your spouse, your significant other. Does that make sense? So what I want you to be able to do is to remember two things. Build love maps of the people that you care about. Learn about them. And turn toward them when they make little bids for your attention. If you do those two things, you're going to find all of your relationships start to improve. And I want to share one last thing with you. This actually comes from Norman Vincent Peale. He says, many of the world's finest Oriental rugs come from little villages in the Middle East, and each rug is hand-produced by a crew of men and boys under the direction of a master weaver. Since they work from the underside of the rug-to-be, it frequently happens that a weaver absent-mindedly makes a mistake and introduces a color that is not according to the pattern. And when this occurs, the master weaver, instead of having the work pulled out to correct the color sequence, will find some way to incorporate the mistake harmoniously into the overall pattern. It's a useful object lesson, Norman Vincent Peale says, for we can all learn to take unexpected difficulties and mistakes and weave them advantageously into the greater pattern of our lives. There is an inherent good in most difficulties. So if you are in difficulty in your relationship right now, if you have believed some of these myths, if you've tried going to Paris in April and discovered it was miserable, I invite you to change your life by changing your thinking, changing your belief in those myths, and moving in the direction of positive sentiment override, assume the best, turning toward your partner, building a detailed love map, and sharing the things you appreciate about your partner with them. So, I'm going to take us into prayer right now. And here's what I'd like to invite you to do. As you close your eyes, put your hand on your heart. Take a deep breath. Think of one thing about yourself that you appreciate. Think of one thing about the person you're closest to or would like to be closest to that you appreciate. We expand our attention into the infinite presence of the divine, which is right here and now all around us as the presence of love. Love is the reason for all creative expression. Love is the reason the universe has come into being, so that the divine might express its overflowing joy of being through all that is. It is expressing that love through us right now in this moment of appreciation. And as it builds in us, it spills over into the room, touching each person here present and bringing healing, bringing peace, bringing hope and enthusiasm, deepening our capacity for love. We hopefully, joyfully, appreciatively, and gratefully take hold of this gift, this moment, this love. This moment that deepens into infinity, stretching out in time and space without bounds. This love which is so deep and so vast that no mistake that has ever been made is more than a drop within it. immediately made right, drawn forward into wholeness and love. We accept this goodness. We accept it for ourselves. We accept it for our loved ones. We accept it for those most in need of it anywhere in the universe at this moment. And we are deeply grateful to be of service in knowing this truth for ourselves and all others. Gratefully, gratefully, gratefully we release this prayer into the creative law of mind and spirit, where it has always been the truth in the divine mind and heart. We let it go then to unfold perfectly in our experience, and we simply let it be so. And together we say, and so it is. Yes, and so it is. Thank you.
It's time for our gifts and tithes and offerings. So as the ushers come forward, we'll do our giving affirmation. And as Reverend David says, if you're a first-time attendee, give as you wish, but please don't take anything out of the basket. Lovely giving affirmation today. Say it together. I am generous and kind, and I trust my generous, kind nature. I attract the best people, things, and experiences. I expect lavish support so that I can lavishly support the world. Thank you. I get to be David and Susan, but I'm actually Maureen Ross. And this is Deb Dake. She's going to tell you about the red carpet event.
I was actually up here earlier to make sure she didn't make a mistake. I was actually going to come up here and challenge everybody to buy a table, but at 9:10 a.m. this morning, I got a text that said, there's only 10 seats left at the dinner. So So this crowd needs to go out and buy them before second service gets here. That's all I'm going to say. I'm just saying.
That's all you're going to say. She couldn't make a mistake on that one.
She said, the red carpet event. What other event is there? And yes, my name.
What other events are there? I don't know. Let's find out. Let's find out. Off you go. Thank you. Good news for the staff. The center is closed tomorrow for celebration of President's Day, so pick your president. Take the day off. 8:45 to 9 o'clock every Sunday morning. I'm sorry, 9:15. There is chanting with Liz, Fadina, and Karen Fedor. They've come back from Bali with Reverend David, and they do chanting upstairs. Of course, Red Night on the carpet. You only have 10 seats. Get to it first service. Next Friday, For Love, a benefit concert benefiting the Next Door Solutions for Domestic Violence with wonderful, wonderful music. Saturday, I tried to do the math, but I don't have a smartphone. I have a smart enough phone. I know you apps people are out there. I know it. E Squared, which I thought was Ernest and Emma, actually is not. It's Energy Experiments. It's a class that starts February 27th with Reverend Susan. So there's lots to do. Check your bulletins. Check the 2 information walls outside. Ask someone a question, because we're a community of love. And so let's complete our service today by going within very quietly. But I think you're supposed to stand and take the person on your hand of your person on your right and on your left. So quietly stand. Oh, look at that. And now, softly we go inside. Take a breath in and release it. Gorgeous. It's all about love. It's all about caring. It's the beauty that we bring into our day as community. We have been blessed by Reverend Mary, by the amazing choir that has flowed music out into us, and the sun shines today. So we take these gifts that we've received into our hearts, into our world, into our family, and we become an ocean of abundance that flows out everywhere we go. And I say that it is blessed, and together we anchor it with the words, and so it is. And please repeat after me these gorgeous words. Franklin Prevette, this is for you. I am at home in the heart of God.
I am at home in the heart of God.
My life is anchored in truth.
My life is anchored in truth.
I live in the consciousness of peace.
I live in the consciousness of peace.
I can never be separate.
I can never be separate.
I am living love.
I am living love.
And so it is.
And so it is.